our intent today was to look at what the VC mindset is in terms of this space in particular, and therefore just get a sense of, if you are a founder, if you are a venture, how do you position yourself to a VC, and what are some of the intrinsic market statistics and the landscape overall that one has to be aware of, while of course growing and scaling your venture in this space, right? So very quickly, I'll introduce our two panelists, and really glad that they could make it here. Vishnu, I think we've known for quite some time. Vishnu is the investment principal at Speciale Invest. Before this, of course, he studied abroad. He was in Harvard Kennedy, and he spent a lot of time building ventures too. So he had a solution in the battery tech space, where in Cambridge, if I'm not wrong, Vishnu, where he looked at the overall landscape, not just in India, but also from the world lens. And of course, now he's been part of a lot of consulting firms where he's talked about climate as a space. He was with Mycelio, where he headed the fund, then joined Avana, and today is with Speciale Invest. So we've actually been in touch with a lot of ventures that he's invested in, and so to an extent, we have quite a bit of understanding on, I think, how Speciale works, how Vishnu works as an individual, and also the space in general. Our second panelist for the day is Vinod, and Vinod is, of course, co-founder and partner at Java Capital. I was just talking to Vinod some time back, and he was talking about how, again, the union in terms of the NSRCEL startups and the world that we've created here, and their ecosystem is actually quite synchronous, in the sense that we've been together funneling startups for them, and he's been interacting with a lot of faculty here at IMB. Vinod has been there for quite some time. He in the Bangalore, in the Indian startup landscape. He was, of course, at Kalari before this, and for quite some time now, he's been pioneering this effort with Climate Through Java Capital, situated largely at Coimbatore, but also looking at investments across of India. So Vishnu, Vinod, great to have the two of you. Vishnu, maybe I just wanted to bring light onto what the investment thesis at Speciale might be, and Vinod, maybe you can follow that up as well, in terms of just how you think as a VC, and what kind of startups you're looking at.
Thanks so much, Nihal. I hope you can hear me well.
Yeah.
Nihal, thank you for that kind introduction, and very happy to be here. A big fan of what you guys do at NSRCEL'S. So, been to the office also once. Great campus and nice place to be for any founder to or any startup to be innovative. At Special, we focus a lot on deep tech investments. We are an early stage investor. So when we say early stage, typically pre-seed, seed rounds. Currently, we write check sizes up to $1 million, but the sweet spot is little less than that. So when specifically focusing on the climate side of things, the general deep tech thesis applies to us anyway, and we invest across multiple, thematic areas, be it space tech, climate, biotech, synthetic bio, applied electronics and robotics, advanced manufacturing, industry 4.0, 5.0, and so on. Some of our, Vinod and Java and Special has co-invested in many companies, so is a great friend as well. Speaking of the thesis areas, or more like how we approach investing, we are a thesis-driven investor. So typically when we make investments, or typically in a year, I would say that we would have some focus areas where we will be actively looking for investment. So we will have a concrete thesis already made in place, and would be looking into it, which we think are the promising areas. Some of our investments has happened that way. For example, the E-Plane company, which is a eVTOL air taxi company that we have invested in. We had an eVTOL thesis and already in place. And so when we when we came to know that Dr. Satya is building in that space, it was more of like a no-brainer for us to partner with him. But then founders also often surprise us, come with like things which we have not thought about or focused on thesis building. In that case, we try to dive deeper, try to understand the market need, the opportunity, the technology that is being proposed, and also evaluate the team. Our investment in green hydrogen electrolyzer company, New Trace, is one such example. We didn't have a green hydrogen thesis before they came to us. We obviously knew about hydrogen economy, green hydrogen, etc., but that was not something we were thinking that will take off in that particular point of time, or somebody building in India. But fortunately for us,
hold on to this thought, because I think the first question I have is a beautiful segue into exactly what you said. Maybe I'll just bring Vinod in terms of their investment thesis, and then I'll ask this question to both of you, in fact, because what you said is very interesting, especially given that it's such a nascent space, right? So yeah, Vinod, maybe if you want to.
Thanks, Nihal. Thanks for having me. Of course, Vishnu and Special, we are like great friends. So we've done a bunch of deals and we keep talking to each other. So great to have, doing this with Vishnu. I mean, we've not done anything together. And one small correction, Nihal, we are based in Bangalore. Good that we are in Coimbatore. I think we've created enough action. People think I'm from Coimbatore now, which is good to know. That means working in a way. As we are again pre-seed seed stage focused fund with a check size typically about 400 to 500K first checks, and we can follow on and do up to like $1 million. We invest in areas like deep tech, and that's why we have some shared deals with Vishnu, climate and sustainability, and B2B, and SaaS and B2B. That's like 3 areas that we invest in. We've kind of investing out of a new fund currently, and that's where we are. And our action into climate is part of the new fund. We've not done like a focused investing in the previous fund, but this is the 2020 vintage is the first one. This is the 22 vintage fund that we have currently that's running, and there climate is a very significant focus, and we've kind of tried to put ourselves in spaces we think where we can actually founders will be there, markets will be there, and we can also make money. I think that's like an overarching goal for most investors, I feel. And there are some areas we definitely are like really keen on. For example, alternate batteries and battery materials. That's something that we've like looking at extensively. We've also kind of looked at agri biomass to energy transition possibilities. That's also another significant area that we kind of spend time on. So these are areas that we spend time on, and we kind of actively build our knowledge base on this. And as we speak, we're building something on nature-based solutions internally for us to kind of consume first before we send it to the larger world to see and appreciate what's happening. So that's been our process, and we've invested previously in companies like Okilo Aerospace, which is a solar electric hybrid. We've invested in ePlane. We've invested in an alternate plant protein company called Pseudo Foods.
Interesting.
So we've done a climate previously also, and we continue to focus as a part of this fund. And another one called Urja Energy, which focuses on EV. So we've done a bunch of them in climate and sustainability space. Yeah, apart from just being deep tech. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good to hear some of the names that have also been through NSRCEL, like the New Traces of the world and the Urjas. I'll come to what I was referring to, Vishnu and Vinod, in terms of that bit on how do you understand the landscape in the market, right? Maybe Vishnu, you can take this first. In some sense, climate is a theme, right? Less than a sector or an industry, and therefore, as a VC, it gives you this interesting nuance, this mixture of this ability to be able to research areas where you see proliferation, say EV and the EV value chain, where there are so many OEMs, there are so many battery makers, and people today are even building on top of that, right? So the charging management solution or the battery management solution, so on and so forth. Whereas there are some other corners of the world in terms of, say, water and sanitation, where absolutely no thesis or there is no scope for thesis simply because it's such a small paradigm where that the nuance is not even built, right? So referring to what you said, how do you as a VC tackle this? And maybe give us a sense of today, where do you have that concrete thesis, which means from a founder lens today, where can ventures come to you confidently and say, you guys know this so well, we'd love to be able to talk to you. And obviously we can't predict where these small corners come from, and the question there is, so how do you tackle that, where the founder comes with a certain thesis? How are you as an investment team able to dig into that particular niche?
Absolutely. Thank you. First and foremost, I'll take the upfront, put a disclosure over there. We are not experts in any of these things. We are investors at the day, generalists. So we'll not claim or pretend to be experts in any of these sectors. At the end of the day, the founders are the ones who know it better, and we are just functioning for them and their benefit at the end of the day. About the thesis, how do I keep track of different thematic areas? One thing is being close to the action, right? So we work very, very closely with, because there is also a deep tech focus, work very, very closely with the sources of innovation. When I say that, places like NSRCL or the IITs, IISc, all of them have a technology transfer team or professors who are working on certain things. Be visible at those sources of innovation is very important. So we kind of get to see what sort of things are being built, even at an idea stage or a lab stage. So that's one way to just see where the trends are going. Another, part which, what is fortunate for, at least for the climate side of things, is there's a community that I manage. It's called the Climate Tech for India community. We know this also part of it. It's usually just founders and investors. So when the community over there is very, very active in discussing, and we learn a lot of new things from there. It's only founders and investors. So it's very, very selective knowledge sharing and managed discussions that happen. So we get a lot of insight from that. And to be very, very frank, being in India, one of the advantages is we look to the West. We are usually a year and a half lag behind the West. So I don't know whether that's the most inspiring thing to say, but to be very, very frank, when we look to the West, where what's being built in US and Europe sometimes get replicated, or people adapt and get inspired by what is getting built over there. And we also keep track of what is being invested. There are things which are very unique to India as well, which gets built over here. But that's some of the ways we keep track of what sectors to deep dive on in building a thesis, etc.
Got it. And Vishnu, to you, in terms of especially in the sectors?
The sectors which are interesting to us. So see, we have investments across the climate theme, mobility, energy transition, industry 4.0, agri-tech, cross-cutting themes like, circularity, battery recycling, and so on. One thing we try to do is not to invest in companies which we have been competitors, which the companies we have already invested in. So good thumb of rule is to just take a look at our portfolio before you decide on coming to us. Happy to always talk to people. But in terms of future sectors that we are looking under the climatic theme, some of almost everything that Vinod said resonates with us as well. Additionally, I would say that grid modernization is something which I'm very, very passionate about. I look into that quite, extensively. Very few companies, actually, at least from what I know, work in that sector in India. Long duration storage is going to be huge than even lithium ion mobility based storage that's happening in the next 5 years. We see immense potential and market opportunity. Anybody working over there on long duration storage or grid level storage, though both of those are interesting to us. Whether it's mechanical or chemical storage, we are always happy to take a look at for people working over there. From the industry side of things, industrial filtration, industry industrial heat are two areas which is of immense importance, or like, would love to see things over there. Sustainable HVAC, air cooling, is something which will be the backbone for a tropical country like India's growth. That's something which I'll be like super keen to take a look at if people are working on that.
Yeah, awesome. Especially I think with rising temperatures, and yeah, I completely hear you. Vinod, your take?
So I think sectors I've kind of given a brief already. I think Nihal, in terms of how I look at companies, right? Like that question was actually, coming back right to that earlier part of the question that you asked. I think, fundamentally, I think you'll have to be curious, first of all, to be a VC. And it's a constant need to keep yourself, reading or updated, on what's happening. So in a sense, partly, let's say certain actions are driving trends. You need to be watchful of that, but it's not necessary that, you'll have to always go with the trend.
Mm-hmm.
You can have your own, directions also. In my case, it's always been reading, and it's like a rabbit hole, which is led to a lot of my companies. You start reading about X, and X leads to Y, Y to Z, and by the time you finish, right, a sitting of 3-4 hours, you would have led to somewhere else, and you would find an interesting company. It's happened to me multiple times in the past also, and I think, that's like a very intuitive way of, sourcing companies, for me at least. And it's worked for me in the past, I can tell you. And I kind of spoke to a company in like 2018. That company, I found them in a train, because people were playing that company on a train, and I eventually tried to catch hold of them. By then, they eventually sold to Google for $40 million.
Wow.
So to my mind, right, if looking at companies, right, they come from the unusual of places, Nihal.
Yeah.
Of course, we are in touch with, CCAMs and the ISCs and the IITs of the world. We do stay in touch and to see, what's happening there, to understand. But that's like one way of looking at, sourcing, if you ask me, right? You can keep an eye out and go search for it, or, you build a brand and put yourself out there. For example, you could publish a report on XYZ space and, put out some reports that actually attracts folks to come and talk to you who are already building in that space. So that's another way of, making sure, you are being heard in areas that you want to be heard, in a way.
That's
So those are ways, at least at Java, we've been kind of sourcing, being active on social media across these areas. And of course, we have interesting areas. Currently, I'm looking at robotics, I'm looking at nature-based solutions, like I said, right? I'm looking at biomass to energy transition solutions. So those are areas that I'm currently looking at, and it keeps changing. It doesn't remain a constant also, frankly. I mean, it keep moving. Yeah.
Yeah, these are market-driven factors, and so many, even the thesis is a evolving thing. So, what you spoke about, Vinod, was, I think, the fact that you find your way to ventures, right? In some sense, because this is how you've been operating for a while. From the founders that are probably on the other side of the screen, they are also probably wondering, where can I be so that Vinod can find me, right? So, you guys talked about the collective, which you both are part of, but what other ways can founders put themselves out there for, or where is that catchment pool, right? What kind of communities exist out there? Not just from funding, by the way. I mean, funding is one piece of growing a venture, right? There are probably companies who are bootstrapping, but today just need support in terms of community, or that one connect, or that little bit of insight. And especially in areas like climate, where ice engines have been there for hundreds of years. Someone who's building an EV is probably saying, how do I find the next component manufacturer and reduce my procurement time from 6 months to just 3 months, right? Things like this. How do you, as a founder, and I gave the example of EV, but it could be anything, right? So how do you, as a founder, try and find these communities, niches, and where should a founder, especially in, say, Bangalore, south of India, really be today, outside of our incubators? And
I think Vishnu gave that answer. He's built a fantastic community like over the last year or so, right? So it is naturally attracting people because it has good chunk of founders and investors. If anybody is a founder or an investor in deep tech today, right? I think I would say there's a 70 to 80% chance is kind of there. I'm saying, you know, obviously founders keep happening, right? So that's one place, you know, ask another co-founder or a founder in the climate space itself, you know, where to show up. I think that's one way of finding light there. Also, right, all of us, right, you know, we put ourselves out there saying, you know, we invest. If you look at my Twitter profile or my profile, right, we clearly say, look, we are very actively investing in deep tech climate. Clearly, you only chase investors who are really already, you know, conscious and educated themselves about of investing in climate. Then your friction to talk to someone reduces dramatically. And my email is on my social media profiles, for example. Vishnu's is there, and our common email IDs are on our websites. It's as simple, you know, actually. For us, it's like a 14-day process to get back, you know, to say yes, to no. Typically, no in 14 days. Yes will take, you know, a call, couple of calls, and maybe, you know, 2 months. So I think most VCs today are very, very openly putting themselves out there, right? And I think founders can easily reach out to us. There are no any barriers that I think we've erected today. And if you're in South India, I think just look for VCs who are doing climate tech and deep tech. You'd find, I think, you know, maybe about 10 people, and you are there in South India, I'm saying.
Right.
Okay, yeah.
You have two of them on the call, so.
That's right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, interesting. And you know, Vishnu might beat me for this later, but if you go to his LinkedIn, even his Calendly is available, right? So
No, it's there for a reason. I
yeah,
won't beat
so
you at all. I was about to say, like, my calendar. I mean, it's not like my every slot is available in that. Like, I have one slot per day, but it's a quick chat. I don't even usually I don't even like. I mean, that calendar slot is for anyone to take. You know, quickly just pick a slot. That is for 30-minute conversation, just to even if you want to just come brainstorm. There are people who just reach out to me asking about like career, how to build a career in climate. So I don't usually monitor on that, like, you know, filter on that. Usually have all the conversations there. But personally, like as Vinod was saying, both of us have our emails on our social media. Just writing, dropping an email, you know, a message, very accessible in that sense. That's the way to be. I don't believe in the old school VC philosophy of like, you know, founder needs to work really hard to get our contacts or access. My phone number is also there. So it's very, very, very common for people to just message, and I'm pretty responsive in that sense as well. The
building
one
a wall nowadays is how you build a anti-portfolio.
it's actually like my biggest one of the biggest areas where I get my sourcing is through my anti-portfolio. I would like, you know, people whom I say no, but end up being good friends, or like, you know, have great conversations with them. So they eventually, even if I haven't put or invested, put capital or invested in that particular company, they end up suggesting us to other people, other founders, you know, ask them to go and talk. So it's a great way to communicate. So the anti-portfolio is not necessarily very, very anti in that sense. They are good friends.
No, honestly, same thing. I think we see this even in the incubation world. We may not necessarily incubate someone, but there is always help in some way because the network effects are that big, and the scale at which a VC or an incubator operates is also massive. And
I have an interesting anecdote on this anti-portfolio. Like, because I'll tell you why, and I'll tell you the reasoning also. Right, I have another VC firm who's like invested in about 70% of like, let's say, firms which we didn't want to, in a way. Let me put it that way, right? But the point is, right, I realized there's no right or wrong in that, right? Like, each person, right, each VC, if a company comes to me and Vishnu, right, Vishnu may invest, I may not invest. You may invest, you know, we both may not invest. So to me, right, VC is actually is almost personal after a point in time, right? The decision making, the thesis building is everything, you know, boils down to who you are and what you are. So anti-portfolio is technically, right, is an anti-portfolio of only one person, I feel, almost at a point. It's like an individual thing, not even a firm level thing as an anti-portfolio.
right.
So everybody gets to pick what they want in a way, and it's very personal.
Yeah, I mean, to add to that, VC at the end of the day, right? Like, it's a balancing act of the institutional brand as well as the personal brand. And the most successful VC firms are channel and align the individual brands along with the institutional brand. So
No, I completely hear you. And
Nihal, one additional point I would say to what Vinod was saying on how the socialization part. See, so far we have very active founder community, not necessarily just in climate. In India itself, like we have successful founders. A lot of them who have built had successful exits or have billion-dollar companies started building it few years ago, and they probably did not build in climate. Does not mean that they don't have interest in these areas. And they are very active angels in these climate companies these days. So being plugged into that founder network, trying to get plugged into that founder network, trying to socialize your idea before even raising institutional capital with founders who have gone through the startup journey itself will be a great tool in addition. And to be fair, even the early climate founders, like for example Akshay of Log9, he's doing angel investments on his own. So a lot of people are trying to do that. Need not be even angel investment, even to just go and speak to them about their journey, who to speak to in the industry, etc. Those guys are brilliant.
Yeah, no, I think we were at also today a roundtable on something very similar where Akshay was also there. So, no, I think in certain pockets, all of these gatherings happen. In some sense, I think it's about just taking that extra step also as a founder to say, how do I put myself out there, right? And I think that helps solve a lot of things.
On a lighter note, Nihal, there's no dearth of climate events in the next 2 weeks, I can tell you.
I very honestly, I am seeing not just VCs, but even incubators do events left, right, and center in terms of climate sustainability. So, well, I think it's a trend that's picking up. If you see some of these small case stock portfolios, energy is the highest returns also. So I think the market is very excited, undoubtedly. But Vishnu, I just want to go back a little to what you said earlier, which is, I mean, firstly, you were outside of India, so like you talked about the lag, so to speak, and then how some of the innovation there, the ideas there trickle down to where we are. Can you paint the picture a little bit of how the current landscape looks versus where you see some of these opportunities really coming up in the same next 4 to 5 years as India progresses into all of these focuses in energy and EV and even we have laws now, draft bills on battery, we have draft bills on plastic, the thickness of plastic. So there is so much headwind to kind of push these innovations out there in the market. So from that sense, where are those opportunities for a founder sitting in this call today, that either they can pivot to, or if they're building early, they can consider as a secondary revenue channel, so on and so forth?
Interesting question. So do you want me to give a comparison to what's happening outside India as well?
Yeah.
See, to be very honest, right? I mean, the climate market, in capital availability for climate founders is very different in the West compared to India. There is a lot more climate capital available to folks over there. It doesn't mean that we can't build companies over here, or is it easy to build over there? So the more capital available, the extent of competition you have over there is also extremely high. Some of the areas where in India we would see active uptake would be the areas which I was speaking about in the energy transition space. Smart grid modernization is an area where I'm extremely bullish on. Things needs to happen quicker and quicker. India government will soon move into a time of the day pricing, more of a dynamic market, and the innovation should happen before that even policy push comes in, and that pushes already the visibility is there on timelines, etc. So to think about how to capitalize on that is something founders need to start thinking about. there is a huge opportunity on the storage space, be the alternative chemistry that Vinod was talking about, or in the long duration storage part, which is also bustling. Like, think about the whole renewable generation space of solar and wind being set in India. It's huge. And currently it is mandated that every generation facility needs to have storage associated with it. We need to bring down the cost. We need to have innovations in the space, and we need to have grid scale storage. Lithium can't do that. There needs to be flow battery technologies solutions. There needs to be mechanical energy storage. I mean, gravity based storage systems, or stuff similar to that. The wave energy based stuff, geothermal. People are exploring in all these areas, and all of these are opportunities where founders can build in the next 3 to 5 years in the energy transition space. And if I take each aspect of the climate sectors, these are important areas to build on, be it mobility, where we have seen the first wave of mobility innovations in India with respect to ride hailing, ride sharing and shared mobility. The second wave of innovations happened through electrification. There's a digitalization connected wave that is happening and will continue to happen. And there is a layer of innovations wave that needs to come in from the automation side as well. Like, say, for example, if you look into Blue Smart, it's a combination of the first wave and the second wave. They combine the ride sharing with electrification. So there are innovations that need to happen in the mobility space in all of these areas. Automation is some area which I'm like extremely bullish on. Like, not necessarily like self-driving cars, but the level 3, level 4 automation that can be implemented, and how do you work around it? How do you integrate the whole electrification aspect and link it to the network as well as the grid? Important area of innovation that people needs to focus and build on. Same goes with industry. I spoke a little bit before, but advanced manufacturing is something which I'm very, very bullish on. Again, we need to have like solutions that can push this whole aspect of how manufacturing happens in India, move it forward. The whole infrastructure aspect, right? Like, I mean, people say there's some saying that 85% of this country is yet to be built, and we need steel, cement for that. These are hard to abate sectors. How do you decarbonize that sector? It need not always be just about going for alternative materials. They are very slow to adopt innovation industries. They don't adopt innovation that easily. But can there be alternative solutions which can bring the usage of cement and steel down without compromising the needs of the infrastructure growth that this country needs? Same goes with agriculture. The first wave of agri-tech innovations in this country was more farmer-centric. We were looking into the problems around market linkages, supply chain, input linkages, and providing, solving information asymmetry. There's a whole technology-centric approach that is coming on storage, supply chain, how to minimize, spoilage. There is a lot on the productivity aspect, precision agriculture. How do you bring down dependency on fertilizers, which are in turn coming from petrochemicals? Right. And then there is the industry 4.0 as well. So all of these, and then somebody I saw in the Q&A section asking about a clean development mechanism, like, I mean, carbon capture and carbon capture, storage, and utilization. CCUS is like something I'm super bullish on. Somebody needs to come and bring a solution, but for India, that will work for India. Circularity, you were talking. So huge opportunities for anybody who wants to build in this space. Got it.
I'll kind of take a few things which Vishnu said, right? Like this technological push. I think there's a question in the box as well. How does technology meet climate to create innovation? But maybe let me put a little bit of a spin on that, right? So if you look at something like the OCPP, the Open Charge Point Protocol, in some sense built in Netherlands, but adopted by America in terms of standard. Now it's creating a whole host of innovation as a layer on top of charging. Essentially, policy driven or some kind of mandate driven technological infusion into the ecosystem, right? Do you foresee, or have you come across areas like this where some of the policy led, research led, think tank led problem statements have actually created a lot for the entrepreneurial and innovation ecosystem? And maybe, I mean, I don't want to put you on the spot if you think maybe there are 4 or 5 such areas at all that you want to talk about, and even if some of your portfolio may have been part of innovations like this, would love to hear about this.
I think, I didn't expect this question, but it's very interesting you ask. But I'll give you some examples, right? I think policy-led innovation and standardization, right, is part of the game. And standardization especially, right, Nihal, has been the game. Like, you take, what are we communicating on, right? We're communicating on common set of protocols, right? Like an IP protocol. Or you take your video, right? We're doing some H.264 and MPEG, right? So standardization is always great, if you ask me. In certain areas, I'm like, it's not a blanket, of course, right? We want diversity, but especially in technology adoption, right? Standardization really helps. USB-C, think of OCCP as like a USB-C, right? You're reducing waste by introducing a single type of charger, right? Imagine the impact, right? Everybody has the same type of charger. We don't need to manufacture multiple stuff. It need not be thrown away. There's a standard charger. That's like an example of a policy level or a standardization level impact. You take, for example, India's space policy. In space, clearly, right, that policy is, I mean, without calling it, right, it's a very monumental policy, if you ask me, because I've never seen such thing happen ever in the country before. And in terms of facilitating, right, and it just facilitated every stakeholder needed, for a private space company to launch itself, be it in data, be it launching vehicles, launching satellites. Again, a policy intervention example, in space. And we're seeing, policy interventions on the battery side today. There are drafts and notifications out saying, you can't, for example, there is an ban on black mass potentially going to come through. So those are intervention to say, look, keep valuable resources, recycle it. Again, as it's a policy intervention. Why are we sending importing lithium, precious metals, bring it in, then export it back to another country, for recycling? We need to do it here. When you do that, right, immediately that spurs innovation, saying, okay, now there's a ban on sending out lithium batteries outside the country. How do we recycle it in India? And similarly, you put a ban on exporting black mass, you will find people, who try and extract metals out of black mass now, not just exporting, just black mass. Right. Black mass, think of it as just shredded batteries that I'm talking about, well shredded, grinded battery. How do you extract elemental metals from it, like a lithium, a nickel, cobalt, or a manganese, or whichever that's going to come out of, right? I think we need such startups in the country, right? If the government makes that, then it becomes very attractive for some of these companies to do. So I mentioned space policy. I've given you a lithium policy.
Right.
I think government interventions can do wonders if done with the right intentions, with the right incentives. It can really change the dynamics of how things operate, honestly.
Absolutely. I think like the Paytm, phone pays of the world, and the catalyst that was UPI. I mean, like, these are examples, right, where you get huge headwind from just small changes. And oftentimes when you are lying in wait for these changes and you adapt, it really is a catalyst. So
same thing on carbon credit also, right? We have a carbon credit direction on what you can do, right? What you can export and what you cannot, clearly on carbon credits also. See, all of these are enabling, for us to make sure that, innovation can happen. Markets for the local Indian companies is spurred, and we're not left out, right? Unlike in the previous waves, right, Nihal, if you look back, right, in the case of mobile, right, we came in and directly jumped to smartphone, in a way we went leap forward, no landlines, right? Not as many landlines. I think we are kind of potentially poised, example in EVs that Vishnu was talking about, blue smart. Like we had like fewer per capita vehicles today, right, on the ground, even though traffic problems are there. I'm saying, fewer vehicles. Imagine, we directly leap to EV. First vehicle that's ever bought by somebody, imagine, is an EV, never an ICE vehicle. That's like really possible in India, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I think those leap, we similarly possibly will have to do, in climate, but there's no leap to do in climate because everybody is also struggling with the same problem. But the advantage also at the same time is, look, world is not commercialized a lot of things yet.
Yeah.
Nobody in the world also has commercialized a lot of things, a lot of R&D. Same situation applies to us. we should not be left out. I think that's my honest view. We should not become like catching the tails of this technology wave also when it comes to climate, right? We've done that catching the tails business for quite some time in the 2-3 other waves, right? Be it semiconductors, we are like not there yet, right? We're trying to catch the tail now, right? So in this case, I think in climate's case, I think we have like tremendous capability and startups and incentives that the government policy is slowly pushing in the right direction. And I think startups should be like, we should do this out of here and we should sell it to the world, not necessarily only India. I think it's possible in climate, it's not there. No technology is like kind of stratified anywhere else. So we have enough space and opportunity to operate. That's a massive advantage that I feel in climate, which we didn't have in other areas in the past.
Great. I mean, I feel like I've done my research well, because my next question was exactly that, which is how do we take some of these? I mean, there is the the founder level mindset, right? Which is, I need to pilot and build for India, make in India, everything, which all tends to be very India centric. But to a large extent, the same SaaS software will give you 10x. Will sell at 10x the price in, say, a USA, if you position right and understand the market, right? So Vishnu, I think maybe you can take that, which is, how do you see I think there's two parts to this, right? Which is, what is the overall affinity for countries, whether it's USA. I mean, we are seeing innovations being exported largely to USA today, but also Europe. You're seeing Australia take some of our startups, and I think UPI Lite, all these things are going global now. Point being, there is a certain amount of affinity where you're seeing countries consume Indian innovation, but also the other side, which is from your portfolio, let's say, or from the startups that you have interacted with before. What is that mindset like? Which is, this is not just an India solution. This is a global solution, and sometimes that product may not even make sense for India. It's just that you were born in India and you have the capital from here and you built your team, but it's really a solution for a different market, right? So if you can maybe just again give us a sense of your learnings and key takeaways here, and then we'll jump to questions. I think there are a few in the question answer section.
Great question, Nihal. I think we actively encourage our startups to explore and increase their market size. Like, wherever the opportunity is, they should go. Obviously, it has to be a strategic decision on how to expand and where to expand, and what to be done in that sense. But we are never of the view that it should be just an India focused solution. It can be built in India, and SaaS is the greatest example for that, right? Like, cross-border companies in SaaS are getting built on a daily basis. We churn them out.
Exactly.
But when it comes to climate, and particularly the kind of innovations that we are talking about today over this conversation, especially when they have a deep tech angle to it, etc., or then it becomes a little more challenging than that. First of all, there is no unifying business model or a single technology that defines deep tech. It's just so vast. Same goes with climate.
Exactly.
Anything within, it's just a thematic area that binds everything together. And if you look into SaaS, the reality or the ground is that an Indian guy selling software, yeah, I'll buy that. That's the easier sell for the West, right? India is known for its software prowess, and it's much more of an easy sell to do that software sales than for a deep tech founder at the moment, at least. That being said, people are realizing the potential and the innovations that are happening on the ground in India. The easiest example to give some evidence to this is not necessarily proof of concept that companies have gone abroad and started doing it, but how many of the MNCs, global corporates, have started building their corporate venture arms in India. Shell Ventures, BP Ventures, TDK, Orbia, like you pick some of the best names in the world in terms of industrial giants. They are all looking into India for as an innovation source now. They are willing to put capital. They are willing to partner with Indian companies. and put, not just provide capital as investments, but partner with them. So they are seeing India as a market opportunity, but they all want to, and I know this because, some of them approach us to partner with Special itself, because, they would like to see the pipeline of what is happening over here. So people are aware of this. So there is a trend that is changing. We are not yet there. In a few years' time, together as an ecosystem, we need to build our momentum in building that confidence on a global stage for Indian companies and Indian innovations to be accepted worldwide. For the, the early startup founders, it would be a difficult task, but all it needs is it's one winner. There are people who are already building in that direction, moving in that direction. And hopefully by the time, in a few years' time, when we speak again in a similar forum, I'm pretty sure we'll have a lot of examples and people building that. But I am all for building for the global platform. That is how it should be. It need not, like, the Indian market need not be large enough to sometimes, but we have our own advantages that we bring on in terms of cost, the talent pool available over here, in terms of like the infrastructure and the support, the policy support that is being given to startups, and especially now that the deep tech startup policy, etc., are in place, it's phenomenal. So we definitely have a great but difficult path ahead.
Awesome. I think that gives us a really good sense of market, how you guys think, what founders can do in terms of finding investment, but also looking at opportunities in the market. And maybe now it's time for us to just maybe jump into a few questions. I know that there are questions related to what we spoke of, but also even otherwise. So we'll just maybe do a quick fire version of this in the last 10 minutes that we have, Vishnu and Vinod. The first one is very specific. How are you folks assessing greenwashing, assuming it's carried out in-house? Anybody has any thoughts on this?
I'll take a crack. I am not an impact investor. So when I invest in climate focused startups, at the end of the day, the motive is to make money, give returns to all the stakeholders in this particular thing. So if a company comes with the intention of greenwashing, I think we'll know, because we don't evaluate actually on the the climate impact side of things. We evaluate on the fundamentals of the business based on the financials and the market opportunity, the team, etc. So nobody can just do greenwashing, and I'm pretty sure it's true for Java as well, that they can't make a greenwashing statement and get capital from financial investors unless there are strong business fundamentals. Investment does not happen.
No, I think I mentioned earlier, right, Nihal, of course, right, like we're doing climate and deep tech investing. It doesn't mean, we leave away the fundamentals of what we have to make for a venture capital investment. I think that clearly is a case for us. So yeah, we don't look at it in a way. Yeah.
No, and I think the same thing with the end consumer, right? Unless there's real value in a product, why will they buy? And maybe that segues into the last question which we have here, which is, what's the VC perspective on startups focused on changing individual user behavior, particularly in the context of circularity? While these startups may not always rely on deep tech, their mission is to encourage users to adopt more, etc., etc. So are VCs actively looking in this space? Anybody want to?
I'll take the nail. I have like slightly stronger views on that, especially, right. I think we've discussed this with Vishnu in one of the meetings, right? Like, I mean, if you expect all the country's population to take responsibility, right, that's not going to happen. I keep telling that, right? People in this room who are like the first 1% consumers of everything that's consumed in this country, right? I think first we'll have to put our hands up and say, look, I'm responsible and I will make first the change. So expecting, I don't expect consumers yet, if you ask me, to really take off, by especially on, a voluntary program kind of stuff. That's what's expected, right? But on circularity and recycling, right, I think there is still scope there, which is like a back-end supply chain processes, those kind of stuff. I think there's a massive scope. At an individual level, user behavior, I think, it's a little far-fetched as of now. I think we are away, maybe a decade away, at least in India. Maybe developed markets could be much earlier. I think they should start doing it and show that, it's doable. If you ask me, frankly, it should be their responsibility to show that it's possible with user behaviors. But on circularity and recycling, I think that's something that we look at. We've seen some action there. Supply chain action, sustainable packaging action. I think that is something that still we are, looking at, possibilities to see, what it means. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah, do you want to take a crack at it, Vishnu? Or does that?
Yeah, I mean, again, the answer is very similar. A lot of the innovations that are being funded in the climate space in India, unfortunately, fortunately, are in the B2B space. So a lot of them are not focused on individual behavior change, to be honest. But then there are I personally don't look into it as these opportunities as sorry, my camera got switched off for some reason. I personally don't think these are opportunities that are, even the ones which are focused on behavioral change. If you offer a good enough value proposition to the customer will adopt it. If you want them to pay a premium for the green solution that you're paying, then there might be a problem, especially from an Indian context. Atomberg is a good example, right? They captured the market really well. They are changing the consumer behavior at the end of the day. Purely there's a company called Commons, which is Sequoia US funded, which is looking into carbon footprint for individuals and so on. It's very difficult to see if we can build a company like that in India currently, because our markets are not I keep joking that, we uncheck the 3 rupee that Zomato asks for donations. So how are we expecting to pay for a premium on anything else?
It's like enlightenment, Nihal, currently. That is attaining enlightenment you're asking for, which is far away.
Yeah, but if anybody wants to look into companies and VC that has a thesis around it, Amesia, they're a US and Singapore based fund. Just take a look at them. It need not be exactly what the how the questionnaire are asked, but they still have a behavioral centric climate thesis. They invest in asset-light companies, so just have a look.
Fantastic. I think we're left with 2 minutes, maybe.
Now. Nakul Chowdhury is the co-host now. NSRCEL team is the host now.
Okay.
Sorry
okay.
about that.
Just no, I'm just saying, the largest sink will come from NBS, Nihal. That's my view, because the massive amount of land, water, where are you going to find, invented solutions, right? There's only so much you could invent. I think at some point, this is like a realization that will happen, and we will get a large sink, that will come out from these. Like example, I'll give you a city in abundant rural town or a village in China. They just changed that whole place into a large forest, and it's able to save gigatons of carbon. It's able to absorb it. So more density of cities, for example, also may be a solution. I don't know, right? I'm saying, we could look at potential places there. And I think that's a larger area that will slowly come up, if you ask me. I think my bet is currently at 30 to 40% of the carbon sink will come from there.
Got it. Fantastic. I think one last question I'm going to squeeze in is, Rishabh says, what are your insights on peer-to-peer energy trading? I think that's one area even we are looking at as in terms of an incubator. What are your thoughts, Vinod, Vishnu? And then we'll close.
Peer-to-peer. I think Vishnu alluded to it little. Maybe, Vishnu could take that. Grid level stuff. Yes.
Yeah, it's a grid level innovation that needs to happen. That needs to be integration of distributed energy resources that needs to happen, which needs it to the grid, which needs grid modernization to a large extent. And one potential innovation that can come out of it would be peer-to-peer trading. There are companies in the world that has doing this without the kind of grid innovation that I'm speaking. SolShare based out of Bangladesh is a company that has done that with the solar home systems over there. But again, when you do it with off-grid solar and do peer-to-peer trading, the potential market opportunity would be very less. But peer-to-peer trading will become a reality in the next 4 to 5 years, and would be great to see if people are starting to work on it.
Awesome. I think we took a few questions. I do apologize too. I know there were other questions. We'll try and type out a few if we can, but we'll also try.
I've tried one or two.
Yeah.
So
I'll also keep some of these and see if maybe at a later point we can reply to you. No promises, we'll try, but we had an hour and we've exhausted all of it. But certainly for me, Vinod, Vishnu, was great. Just catching up. Honestly, the first time that we have met, I think. I don't know why my tickets were booked to Coimbatore or not, but I stand corrected. I'll redirect it. See you in.
No. It's a good validation saying, we've listened to the so I'm happy.
No, I know you guys did a few ecosystem meetups and through the grapevine, but point being, my apologies. We'll hopefully catch up sometime soon in one of these meetups. It's a very closed community, and hoping that the founders on the other side also found this very useful. We would love to see you physically at any of our offices. We would love to obviously interact with you. I think maybe Vishnu, there was a question also, by the way, in terms of how do you get onto that group that you were speaking of, or how do you become part of community? I don't know if you
my email is right there on my profile. Like, yeah, I mean, if you're savvy enough, you can find my phone number as well. Feel free to ping. It's hidden somewhere. You can find it if you know how to go navigate LinkedIn. And feel free to. I'll drop my, as Vinod did. I'll just drop to. I think Vinod, you dropped it to host and panelist.
Oh, okay.
I mean, you probably.
I'll drop it.
Okay, yeah. I'll do. Yeah, maybe please.
Yeah, please feel free, Nihal. Please feel free to share my email and Vinod's email as well to everyone. Reach out if you have a registered company in climate. Easy to get into that group. There are no entry restrictions if you're a founder. That's the caveat over there. You need to be a founder. You need to have a registered climate tech company relevant to the climate tech space. I also want to do a shameless plug. If you are in Delhi, if you're a founder in deep tech, I'm doing a deep tech mixer in person in Delhi. If you come to my LinkedIn profile, there is a link to register. If you, it's a fairly, we are doing something in collaboration with IIT Delhi and the PSA's office on the deep tech policy. So feel free to join, meet in person. So.
Awesome. I think I also have a shameless plugin, but Vinod, do you want to go before?
No, I don't have a plug yet. but I think
making me look bad.
Yeah, I'm saying, we're very open to people. People could write to us. Our offices in Indiranagar. We're part of a lot of these events. Please do write to us anytime. We would get back to you and be responsive about it. That's one of the philosophies, because I've had my own personal experience, with that. So I've always tried to make sure that we at least, respond and say that a yes or a no, at least, that's something that we really pride ourselves on. Feel free to write, anytime to catch up in events, happy to do that. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Nihal. Thanks for the opportunity. Yeah.
Thank you, Vishnu. Thank you.
Last point, Nihal, if the metro comes right, I'll come more often to NSR.
Nehal Chowdhury is the host now. NSRCEL team is the host now.
See you, Nihal. Bye-bye. Take care. Yeah.
See you.